Hello, welcome. My name is Brandon Cunningham. You have found my podcast for studying the Bible. I'm glad you're here. Go back to some of the earlier episodes if you want to know kind of why we're doing something. And I am going to put my phone on silent because I forgot to do that. So now you know this is not an edited, polished kind of thing. This is just me trying to study the Bible and bringing you along with me. By all means, uh, click on subscribe, comment, share. We're trying to get this out to the world. I am completely blown away because this is Genesis chapter 13. It's lesson, what, 13? No? Yep. I don't know, lesson 15 probably. I'll figure it out before we title it and all that kind of stuff. But there's been already over 700 views of these videos, and that just blows me away. I never thought that was possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's completely free to subscribe. You can buy a subscription, and that will allow you to have access to some things I'm going to do in May that are only for paid subscribers. You can go do that now if you want. And let's get started. Genesis chapter 15. I'm going to read out of the Immerse Bible because there's not a whole lot that changes in the translation here. So I'm going to just stick with the easy reader. So let's go. Genesis chapter 13. So Abram left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev, along with his wife and Lot and all they owned. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages towards Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai, where they had camped before. This was the same place where Abram had built the altar and where he worshiped the Lord again. Lot, who was traveling with Abram, had also become very wealthy in flocks of sheep, with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot, with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot. Finally, Abram said to Lot, "Let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any section of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I will take the land to the right. If you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left." Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with the flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled along the cities of the plain. But the people of the area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord. After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, "Look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I am giving all this land, as far as you can see, to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. And I will give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you." So Abram moved his camp to Hebron and settled near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. There he built another altar to the Lord. So Abraham leaves Egypt and he goes back up to Canaan. But the wealth becomes an issue. You know, when two people are both wealthy, it makes it really hard for them to kind of negotiate sometimes. So Abraham tells Lot to choose, pick whichever one you want. And obviously, Lot goes for the rich lands of the Jordan Valley near Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, Sodom and Gomorrah, this is prior to them being destroyed. So uh, this was like a hub. All kinds of things happen there, much like Vegas now, Atlantic City, New York City, however you want to look at it. And Abram, he chose the fields uh, out in the countryside, and Lot basically chose the cities, things close to the city. Another example of division and separation. Now, replacement theology began about in the 17th century, and this basically says that the church replaced Israel. Because this promise took so long to be fulfilled, some people in the church gave up and said, okay, now the church gets all the blessings and Israel all the curses because this never happened. God gave it to us. I know, we'll get into it. Didn't happen that way, but that's what replacement theology basically is about. But in 1948, Israel returned. In 1948, meaning just a little over 100 years ago, or a little less than 100 years ago. Sorry, my math's off. The Jewish nation was reborn, just as it was prophesied. And then in 1967, Jerusalem was returned as the capital under the control of the Jewish people. The area Abraham is standing on right now is the West Bank. I suggest you get a map of Israel. I probably can't show it to you without making everybody sick on the camera, but we'll talk about maps in an upcoming video that I'll put together and maybe help that out a little bit. So part of that dividing and separating is based on a single question, is where do you stand on Israel? God, that is a dividing line for God. You either bless Israel or you're cursed because of Israel. But how you treat Israel matters to God. The land is to be unconditionally Israel's forever. I said at one point I agreed with the Abraham Accords that were passed under President Bush. I thought they were probably good. They were passed under President Trump. They were started under President Trump. They actually are not. Now that I study Genesis a little bit better, we should not be giving up any land to anyone other than Israel because it is unconditionally theirs, and that's where that promise comes from. Verse 17 says that Abraham was to do Hazakah. Hazakah, it was a legal custom. Basically, if I'm buying a piece of land, I was to walk that whole piece of land, the perimeter of it, to acknowledge that I'm taking possession of it. It was a legal custom in that time. It completed the legal transfer of the property, basically. Abraham built an altar to declare God's authority over that territory too. Because remember, at this point, everyone believed their gods were territorial. They couldn't leave the territory that they were in. So if you moved, you left your God. Your God couldn't follow you. That is another aspect of God being the true God, is he turns all of that on its ear. God is everywhere all the time, as opposed to these territorial gods. At the time, Abraham felt like this was the right thing to do. And it was. He was honoring God, but he was also, in his pagan mind, declaring God's authority over this area, basically saying the land that God controlled, created, populated, filled with animals and everything, and gave to us, I'm acknowledging is his to give. It's a little funny when you think of it that way, but that's how Abraham saw it. So that's chapter 13, a fairly short chapter today. God bless. Go read chapter 14 and be prepared for the next video. Please leave me your comments, questions, things you want me to talk about that maybe I'm not covering, and I'll see what I can do about that. God bless. Take care. We'll talk soon.